Get over here!
About time I got back into this. Hello everyone, the Green Scorpion here, and let me just say thank you so much for all the support. 2 years ago, I made a video about turning the Monster Hunter monsters into Pokemon, and it ended up becoming far more popular than I could have expected. So naturally, I started planning a sequel video which took way longer than I would have liked. A lot has happened in the past 2 years, getting married, getting promoted at my job, not to mention wanting to focus harder on countdowns, which left this project on the back burner for quite a while. But now that Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is content complete, me jumping into Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate to familiarize myself more with the series, and Monster Hunter Wilds on the horizon, I finally gained the motivation to finish what I started. The last time we did this, we covered the monsters from Vanilla Rise, so now let's continue that train with the Sunbreak update. If you haven't already, I highly recommend watching the original video before watching this one, link in the description. But for the sake of clarity, we're going to go over every monster from Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak and figure out how they would work if placed in the realm of Pokemon. What would their typing be, their abilities, maybe some extra stuff like what sorts of moves they would have. I'll also revise a few of the monsters from the first video based on some comments from viewers. And once again, do not take anything I say here seriously. I'm no authority when it comes to the deeper specifics of either Pokemon or Monster Hunter. This is just meant to be a fun video discussing two franchises that I absolutely love, and to fantasize about that miracle collaboration between these properties. Arceus forbid the developers ever decide to make that a reality. But that's enough preparation. Grab those hyper potions and don't forget to eat at the canteen. It's time to discuss the Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak monsters as Pokemon. Before we get into Sunbreak, there are 4 monsters I want to revise from the previous video, starting with Poke. I gave him Poison Touch last time because I couldn't exactly come up with anything else for him that would fit right. But then I rewatched the intro videos to these monsters and I realized that the answer I was looking for is right there. So yeah, instead of Poison Touch, Poke would have Gluttony. This guy has an iron stomach and eats constantly, and I'm ashamed that I didn't give this to him in the first place. Then there's Magnemalo, and while Dark Steel type definitely works, it's been further confirmed that the blue flames Magnemalo is surrounded by do equate to condemned spirits. So yeah, we're gonna change his typing to Ghost Steel. He can keep Flash Fire and Dark Aura though. Flash Fire would eliminate his natural fire weakness, and Dark Aura would still give him stab on dark moves, which makes sense. Nargacuga is next, and this is one where I'm not making any changes, but rather I'm adding something. Given that Nargacuga's weapons have a heavy emphasis on affinity, it makes far too much sense for Nargacuga to have Super Luck as a hidden ability. I can also see the argument for Sniper, but I'm going with Super Luck. We could even make it one of his natural abilities, and you can have either Unburden or Infiltrator be the hidden ability. Either one works. And my final revision is to Zinogre. I skirted around the possibility of giving him the Fighting type in addition to his Electric typing in the original video. I ultimately decided against it, and in hindsight, that was dumb. The reason behind it, though, is actually very interesting. Turns out that Zinogre's moveset might have been based on Terry Bogard from Fatal Fury. I never found any real confirmation on this, but looking at the way Zinogre fights, it makes sense. He does electric power dunks, his huge tailspin is reminiscent of the Rising Tackle, and Apex Zinogre even does these electric power waves. Turns out doing flips and spins does indeed make a fighting type. Apex Zinogre can remain electric dark though. With that settled, let's get into the real meat of the matter, starting with Daimyo Hermitaur. He's a giant enemy crab with tough claws and an even tougher shell that is actually the skull of a dead monster. Super badass, and that would easily make Daimyo a water ground type. The water is obvious, and it even has Water Gun as part of its moveset, and anything bone related usually means ground type, so there you go. His abilities would either be Shell Armor, because duh, or Weak Armor, giving it a nice speed boost when damaged. He would also have those aforementioned Tough Claws as a hidden ability. And from one Muscle Monarch to another, next is Shogun Ceanataur, who could also be a water ground type like his Daimyo brother, but Shogun boasts a greater emphasis on his razor-sharp scythe claws, so we're gonna go with Water Steel here. I can see Daimyo being a more defensive Pokemon, whereas Shogun would be more offense-focused with moves like Metal Claw, Bullet Punch, and Swords Dance. They can share the same abilities though with Shell Armor and Weak Armor, but Shogun's hidden ability would be Sharpness to really sell those serrated slashers. Bishaten was a tough monster to pin down in the original video, but Blood Orange Bishaten gives me a bit more to work with here. He'd be Fire Normal type, sharing DNA with his base counterpart while bringing in explosive Pine Cones and super hot Fire Breath. Yeah, still not giving him the Grass typing, but he'd definitely utilize at least a couple of Grass moves, likely Seed Bomb. Blood Orange would have Prankster as an ability, much like the original Bishaten, but Blood Orange would also run Skill Link. He can get pretty frantic with those pine cones, so I imagine he'd make good use of moves like Bullet Seed and Rock Blast. This would also give him more to work with from the stab on multi-hit normal moves. Aurora's Somnicanth is a beautiful monster in a strange way. It's not the prettiest thing to look at, but I feel like that's part of the charm, like a siren's true visage made manifest. With a heavier emphasis on ice, Aurora would be Ice Fairy type, with her abilities including Snow Cloak and Slush Rush. Her hidden ability, though, would be Refrigerate. Like, imagine Aurora Somnicanth having Hyper Voice turned into a devastating Ice-type attack. Move over, Auroras. Next is the Lightning Menace of the Fated Four, Astalos. With Misatsune in this game and Glavenus being in World, I'm still waiting for Gamut's return. Here's hoping she shows up in Wilds, but I digress. My first time fighting Astalos, I was struck by its design, sort of a fusion between a drake and a moth. He's not an Elder Dragon though, so no dragon typing here. Instead, Astalos would be Electric Bug. His base ability would be Levitate, given all the flying he does. His hidden, however, would be Wind Power. Astalos has a unique feature where his slam attack with his wings sends you flying back, so I feel he'd make great use of this ability while also covering some of his natural weaknesses. Next up is Seregios, a vicious wyvern with razor-sharp scales and an even sharper temper. This guy is easily Steel Flying type, especially given how much he loves doing those flyby talon attacks. His abilities are where things get pretty cool. His first ability would be Rough Skin, because I can't imagine you can even touch this guy without getting cut. The second would be Steadfast, because holy crap does this guy get fast when he's taking some damage. And finally, his hidden ability, Mold Breaker. This one I admit is a bit more of a stretch, but it just makes sense to me in a weird way. I don't think Seregios would let enemy abilities stop him from a good attack. Magma Almudron is not a fun monster to fight. He's certainly cool and interesting, but much like Lavasioth from World, this thing is a pain given the whole lava motif. Anyway, given the magma in his title, it makes sense for this monster to be Fire-Rock type. See Magcargo for reference. He can share the distinction with base Almudron by having Arena Trap as his ability, though I also feel Magma Almudron would have Flame Body. This guy can comfortably swim in lava, so this makes sense. As for his hidden ability, Earth Eater. This ability didn't exist when I made the original video, so I can also see this being base Almudron's hidden ability as well. Add that to the revisions, I suppose. Now, as a Latino who is fluent in Spanish, I'll admit to feeling a sense of amusement when encountering Espinas, a barbed wyvern whose name literally means thorns in Spanish. He also makes me hopeful for more monsters to be brought in from Frontiers. Espinas would be pure poison type, and some of you may cry foul at this as you might think he also deserves the fire typing. Admittedly, he probably does, but I feel we should save that for his more caustic variant that we'll get to later down the line. As for abilities, Rough Skin and Poison Point make way too much sense here. As for his hidden ability, it has to be Corrosion. Anyone who has ever fought Espinas and got hit by his signature Fireball attack will know precisely why. Now we go into a personal Rise favorite of mine here, Pyre Raknakadaki. Unlike her base counterpart who looks like she just attended a wedding, Pyre Raknakadaki is in her Sunday best with a gorgeous funeral outfit. Her children nearby at all times, ready to provide the fireworks. And I mean that literally. She uses her webs as fuses with her babies acting as living bombs. That's just creative as hell. Pyre Raknakadaki would easily be Fire Bug type, with one of her base abilities being Swarm and her hidden ability being Parental Bond, just like her bridal variant. You could even give her some of Vespiquen's signature moves like Attack Order and Heal Order to better represent her army of younglings. The one difference that Pyre would have over the original, though, is Flash Fire instead of Flame Body. Given her penchant for pyrotechnics, I'd say that fits. Now we're getting into some Master Rank level powerhouses here, starting with Gormagala. Even if it isn't a main antagonist anymore, Gormagala is still treated as a major threat every time it shows up, and for good reason. This thing is a menace. As such, Dark Dragon type fits well here. True that Gormagala may be considered immature by Elder Dragon standards, but it's still an Elder Dragon. As for its abilities, I wanted to emphasize the Frenzy Virus, and I think Pressure and Cursed Body will work here. I imagine it would also have access to moves that would cause status effects like Confusion or Poison. In a similar vein, Shigaru Magala is just as much of a menace as Gormagala, but with a bit more age and a lot more rage. Given that Shigaru is a fully matured Elder Dragon with much more control over his power, I'm gonna go with Psychic Dragon here. The Frenzy Virus literally fucks with your mind, and the Psychic typing gives Shigaru a cool and unique distinction over other monsters. Shigaru would also have the Pressure ability just like Gore, but his second ability would be Berserk. When this thing gets angry, it's a sight to behold. Now let's get into some of the newer monsters, starting with Garangolm. Monster Hunter Rise seemed to go into a theme referencing classic monsters, and while I think it's a bit of a stretch, I feel Garangolm is this game's Frankenstein's monster. I'd say rock fighting works here. This gorilla is super punch happy, augmenting his arms with the natural elements, and his exterior resembles the ruins of temple walls. As for abilities, Iron Fist is a given to complement his punching prowess. I also think he'd have stamina, giving him the power to take a lot of punishment and dish it back twofold. And while Garangolm's Frankenstein inspiration might be a bit tenuous, Luna Garen is very blatantly a werewolf, gaining power from the moon and going from a quadrupedal ice wolf to a full-on frozen lycanthrope. Seriously, this is one of the coolest transformation sequences in Monster Hunter. His typing, I feel, would be Dark Ice. The ice is a given, and like Nargacuga, this thing can get pretty darn feral, his tactics becoming visceral and ruthless. I can see the argument for Fairy Ice given the whole moon aspect, but I feel like Dark Ice works better. I imagine he would have a unique ability that maybe lets him transform into Snowscape similar to Cast Form, but for simplicity's sake we're gonna give him Slush Rush and Ice Body. I can also see other ice-based abilities working here, Snow Cloak, Snow Warning, Refrigerate, etc. Either way, he'd clearly be a frontrunner for any snow-based teams. And continuing from the Winter Werewolf to the Draconic Dracula himself, here we have Malzeno. This guy exceeded all of my expectations, quickly becoming one of the most interesting and fascinating creatures that Monster Hunter has ever designed. With an emphasis on blood and the manipulation of life force, not to mention his innate corruption, we're gonna go with Dark Dragon. I feel he'd run moves that would drain the opponent, attacks like Horn Leech and Leech Life. To emphasize this, we're gonna give him Intimidate for both the extra survivability and his powerful countenance, and Swarm given his use of the Curio. His hidden ability would then be Beast Boost. I envision this being his way of boosting his power from whatever opponent he takes out. Wrapping up the most monstrous of the monsters, let's talk about the Demon of Elgato, Geismagorm. What a thrill this battle is, matching the gravitas of monsters like Kulva Taroth, Shara Ishvalda, and even Fatalis. Albeit the difficulty doesn't quite match the spectacle. Geismagorm would be Dark Dragon as well, given that he's responsible for the fall of the kingdom and the corruption of other monsters, hence Malzeno and the Risen monsters that we'll get to later. His ability, on the other hand... yeah, it would be slow start. I know, it's a horrible ability, but it makes sense here given that Geismagorm takes a while to really get his power going, and doesn't actually become a challenge until the second phase of the fight. He and Regigigas would have a lot to talk about. Now we're gonna get into some monster variants, starting with Furious Rajang. As much as I love Rajang in his many forms, an opinion I'm sure few people share, Furious Rajang is just an angrier Rajang with the same elements and powers, so yeah, electric fighting would be his type. I do want to apply a different ability though, so hear me out on this. Let's give him Quark Drive. I know that's the ability of the future Paradox Pokemon, and Rajang is the furthest thing from a robot, but base Rajang has to work for his power, whereas Furious Rajang is at 200% from the word go. So in the world of Pokemon, put Furious Rajang in electric terrain and you're set. Next is Scorned Magnamalo, the full manifestation of vengeance from beyond the grave. I revised base Magnamalo by giving him the Ghost Steel typing, and that can certainly work here too, but I'm actually gonna go with Ghost Fire. He is still basically a possessed samurai armor, but Scorned has a lot more emphasis on Hellfire Blight and is constantly caked in those ghostly flames. His abilities are where things get really interesting though. To reflect his fury and grudge, Anger Point. To reflect his vengeful nature, Supreme Overlord. Imagine having your whole team defeated and Scorned Magnamalo enters powered by the spirits of his defeated allies. I love it. Seething Basil Juice is basically just Basil Juice cranked up to 11 and then some. Seriously, fighting this guy is a constant game of watch your step, and that's enough slices when it comes to his bombs. Seething would share the Dark Fire typing of his base counterpart, and he would also have Levitate for his ability to make up for the lack of the Flying type. His second ability though, Flash Fire. Seriously, it's not like flames are ever actually gonna hurt this guy. If anything, they'd prime his scales a lot faster. Also, side note, that big dive bomb he does is basically just Flare Blitz. Now we move on to Monster Hunter royalty with Gold Rathian. She's basically a regular Rathian, but with stronger flames, stronger venom, and an even stronger attitude. Fire Poison works here just as before, and then her first ability would be Levitate to offset the ground weakness. Her second ability would then be Queenly Majesty. Gold Rathian is present, and she will not stand to have others take priority over her. But of course, a queen should always be accompanied by her king, and this is where Silver Rathalos comes in, a glimmering rendition of Monster Hunter's signature King of the Skies. Similar to his base variant, Silver Rathalos would also be fire flying, with Intimidate as his first ability. His second ability, though, would be Power of Alchemy. The reason for this is because Gold Rathian and Silver Rathalos have the distinction of almost always traveling together. Silver Rathalos always coming to his queen's aid should he sense that she's in trouble. Power of Alchemy not only works to emphasize Silver Rathalos' viability in doubles, silver is a common component in alchemy, so the theming here just works way too well. Lucent Nargacuga is just way too cool for words. A gorgeous variant of an already awesome monster who adapted to use moonlight to mask its movements. Radiant, cunning, and ruthless, Lucent Nargacuga would be Dark Fairy type, putting him in the same echelon as Pokemon like Grimmsnarl. His abilities would be Poison Touch because merely getting hit by this guy is likely to poison you, and Mirror Armor to represent that reflective coat. In a similar vein, his hidden ability would be Prism Armor, truly emphasizing just how difficult this monster is to take down. So remember how Espinas didn't get the fire typing? Yeah, this is why. Flaming Espinas literally turns up the heat with white-hot flames mixed with deadly toxins, giving us a true fire poison type. We're also going with completely different abilities here. First of all, Corrosion, similar to how Salazzle would work. And then, Merciless, which is precisely how he fights in-game. The moment he poisons you, he will not give you a moment to recover. While we're on the subject though, I should express that I'm not usually a fan of monster variants that are just more of something. Espinas, Rajang, Rathian, and Rathalos, I mean, sometimes it works, like with Magnamalo and Basiljuice, but I tend to prefer monster variants that do something different. I want my variants to be varied, you know? And this is where we get Violet Mitsutsune. Holy shit, what a cool concept! Instead of the aquatic suds of base Mitsutsune or the hellfire magic of Apex Mitsu, we get a ferocious flaming fiend who attacks you with freaking white phosphorus! Just gonna say, one of my favorite fights in Sunbreak. Of course, we're gonna go with Fairy Fire here, and Violet Mitsu will share the abilities of his base counterpart in the form of Dancer and Water Bubble. Instead of Swift Swim for his hidden ability though, let's give him Serene Grace. Violet Mitsu is a beautiful blend of brutal and beautiful, so Serene Grace works really well here. Now, I just got done saying that I'm not usually a fan of variants that are just more of something, but Chaotic Gormagala is something special. Imagine a creature who failed to reach its potential and now lives in endless, agonizing pain with no control over his own power. Chaotic Gormagala is such a truly tragic case that hunting it is a mercy at this point. As such, Chaotic Gormagala would be pure Dark type, having never truly achieved the power of the dragons. His abilities would be Anger Point because he's an Angie boy, but also Merciless. Once the Frenzy Virus is upon you, he will not stop until you put him down. Now, moving away from the monster variants, next we have Velkhana, a gorgeous ice dragon who turns any land he inhabits into a frigid tundra. I will say that he's one of the easier Elder Dragons to deal with, but that doesn't stop him from being a really neat monster. Obviously, we're going with Ice Dragon for his typing, and his abilities would include Snow Warning for the freezing climates he causes, and Ice Scales because, well, duh. Watch out for sheer cold when confronting this dragon. And from chilling blizzards to torrential tempests, next up is Amatsu. When it comes to spectacle and scope, few monsters can match the power of this cataclysmic dragon. Well, aside from gargantuan threats like Shantian and Laviente, but that's a topic for another day. Being a monster who can cause deadly hurricanes and devastating storms, Amatsu would be Dragon Flying type with the super powerful ability Delta Stream. Yeah, Amatsu is basically the Monster Hunter equivalent to Rayquaza, except one is a protector who will defend the world from raging beasts and aliens, the other will polish a city off the map just because you think his armor set looks stupid. Now things are gonna get really interesting. Let's talk about the Risen monsters. For those unaware, the plot of Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak revolves around the threat of the Curio, leech-like creatures that feed off the life force of other monsters and are being controlled by Geismagorm. They're also the creatures that grant Malzeno his power and why they gather around his neck like a gross sanguine beard. As you play through Sunbreak, you'll face afflicted monsters who have basically been infected by the Curio and are now husks of their former selves being controlled by Geismagorm's power. Alternatively, some Elder Dragons manage to adapt to the Curio and have learned to harness the power for themselves. Sort of. They're still hosts for the Curio for all intents and purposes, but they've risen with greater power and are still in control of their own actions, if a bit more on the insane and less than alive side. With that out of the way, let's talk about Risen Chameleos. Normally I'd give the Elder Dragons the Dragon type, obviously, but we just discussed that the Curio basically turns these monsters into husks of their former selves. They're essentially zombies. As such, the Risen monsters will share the distinction of having the Ghost typing. So in this case, Risen Chameleos would be Ghost Poison, a terrifying concept since this monster can inflict both Blood Blight and Venom Blight. Not a fun combination to deal with. Another distinction we'll give the Risen monsters is access to the Pressure ability, similar to how we treated the Apex monsters, but Risen Chameleos would also have Corrosion to reflect the Venom Blight that he still has access to. Next, we have Risen Kushala Daora, and if people didn't like dealing with Kushala to begin with, imagine having to deal with Blood Blight on top of that. Yeah, even I'll admit, Risen Kushala has the potential to be very frustrating to deal with. We're going with Ghost Flying here with the Pressure ability, along with Steelworker as a second ability. Even with the Curio infecting him, he is still a metal dragon who should be getting stab on steel-type moves. Then there's Risen Teostra, and you'd think its flaming mane would be enough to get the Curio to back off, but alas. Risen Teostra would be Ghost Fire-type, easy. And of course, Pressure for its first ability, and its second ability would be Flame Body. No matter what variant of Teostra you face, chances are that you're gonna get burned. Then we get to Risen Crimson Glow Valstrax, and that is a mouthful to say. Risen Valstrax would be one of the 2 Elder Dragons to keep his dragon typing. Even the Curio can't suppress its Draconic Fury, though he is still getting the ghost typing by nature of the Risen state. Pressure for its first ability as usual, and his second ability would be Speed Boost. Like it or not, Valstrax is a speedy boy, and no amount of Curio is going to change that. The final Risen monster comes in the form of Risen Shigaru Magala, and here's where things actually differentiate a little bit. Unlike the previous Risen Elder Dragons that we talked about, Shigaru Magala is such a powerful being that he is actually able to claim the Curio's power for his own, literally rising above Geismagorm's influence and enhancing his strength from the infection. Risen Shigaru would still be Ghost Dragon type, but rather than having Pressure for its ability, he would instead get Neural Force. Risen Shigaru Magala is up there as one of the toughest fights in Sunbreak, so no matter what he hits you with, it's gonna hurt. And now we move on to the final monster released for Sunbreak who rose above and became a true hero with no need for Geismagorm or the Curio, Primordial Malzeno. Unlike his fallen counterpart, Primordial Malzeno relies on his own strength and ends up being one of the toughest fights in all of Sunbreak, showing great skill and prowess as well as a shocking amount of wisdom and awareness. Primordial Malzeno would be pure dragon type, absolving the dark power that base Malzeno was forced to rely on, and he would share the Intimidate ability and the hidden ability Beast Boost, but instead of Swarm, Primordial Malzeno would have Justified. This monster has to deal with the Curio constantly hounding him, but he doesn't need them and he's going to prove it. And with that, we've covered every single monster from Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak. What an undertaking, but this was just as much fun as the first time, and I don't plan on stopping here. Plenty more monsters out there just waiting to be Pokefied, so I look forward to revisiting this topic again, especially with Monster Hunter Wilds on the horizon. Before that though, maybe I'll have a chance to go over World and Iceborne, perhaps even Generations Ultimate. But for now, what do you guys think? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? Feel free to share in the comments. Rest well, my friends, the hunt is over. Say hi to the Meowster Chef and Nurse Joy for me, and I'll see you all next time.